Shabbat Shalom, Beth Emet. Shabbat Shalom, Kahal. It's really a privilege to be here with you to deliver this Devar Torah. With you is a bit virtual, but I'm happy to do this, and I hope that you enjoy it as much as I enjoyed learning this week. This year, Vayakel Pekude are read together this week. Full disclosure, they're always intertwined in my mind. The directions for erecting and the actual erecting of the Mishkan, the tabernacle. The Torah portion, right before both of these Torah portions, lingers in my mind as well. I imagine, as do others, that after the golden calf episode, even though Moses came down with a second set of tablets and God created a second covenant with the people, I imagine there was a rift among the people. Some had sinned building the golden calf. Some had refused to bring anything to build the golden calf. Some had died. God's anger had come forth. Moses' anger had come forth. So when Vayakel opens and stresses that all the community were to come together to be present to hear Moses' instructions about Shabbat and about building the Mishkan, the tabernacle, I also imagine the healing process beginning. And healing can be hard. When the text tells us that everyone was assembled together and invited to participate in the building of the Mishkan by bringing forth possessions, if their hearts, their generous hearts, chose to do so, I envision even greater healing and community building. Each individual's contribution mattered. Those who brought the parochet, the beautiful covering, and those who brought the tent peg, the little piece that held it together, both were critical to erecting the Mishkan. The individuals with their gifts and skills building a sacred communal space for God to dwell. For me, this is a really critical aspect of Judaism, a community inclusive of everyone who wants to be there, working together to build sacred space so God's presence dwells among us. So we, all of us, regardless of our gender, regardless of our class, our talents, our abilities, our birth religion, all of us are a part of the covenant. The whole Israelite community can feel and sense God's presence living with Adonai before us. During our Beth Emet Truma campaign and construction, we often spoke about and felt the excitement of contributing from our hearts to a space where God would dwell among us. In our minds, it was not a big, ostentatious building, but a community that would fill a space with sacredness in the way we interacted and the activities we chose to do. Now, it seems to me we're pulling on other parts of Parshat Vayakel to continue to feel God's presence among us, even when we are not in our renovated Beth Emet building. Ki Tisa ends with Moses coming physically in and out of the presence of God at Mount Sinai. When Vayakel begins, Moses is speaking to all of the Israelites about working for 6 days and ceasing our work on Shabbat. Abraham Joshua Hessel notes that this day, Shabbat, yields to holiness in time. Professor Nachum Sarna moves this idea a step further when he notes that the holiness in particular places, such as the Mishkan, is supplanted by the holiness in time. In both time and space today, we are attempting to create such holiness in our days virtually and also in our homes. Our homes can take us back to that holiness in space, the Mishkan. In fact, the home is often called Mikdash Ma'at, a small sanctuary. It is possible for us to create a sanctuary in our homes, a place where God's presence is felt. What does it take for us to create this holiness in our homes? Some of us live alone, some of us with family, some of us with friends. Space might be made sacred by vessels or by artwork. Space can be made sacred by rituals, activities, and the values that we live in it. I love thinking about the home as a little sanctuary, a mikdash ma'at. I also love that when talking about the Mishkan in the wilderness, our Torah portion notes that so many different gifts are needed to bring I also love that when talking about the Mishkan in the wilderness, our Torah portion notes that so many different gifts are needed to build the tabernacle, indicating to me that so many different people are needed to bring those gifts, and so many different skills are encouraged and appreciated. Sacredness is not created in time or space through an individual. Not even Moses, an individual with the greatest connection to God, was able to build the sacred place alone. It takes a community to build the sacred space and to care for sacred space. In the Mishkan, that was the job of the priests. Now it is our job. It takes the willingness of a community to care for the community, to give to the community. All whose hearts so move them shall bring. Even those of us who live alone bring sacredness into our homes and spaces by our involvement and interactions with others and with the community. Holiness in space and holiness in time. I am feeling great gratitude for the gift of time. Time to create connections. This week I've literally been creating Zoom links in order for those connections to happen. Time to enact connections through cyberspace and across time. Isn't it the gift of time we are trying to give to others, to flatten the curve across time for greater medical care, to extend the gift of time and of life to others? Gratitude rises for time. Time we can make sacred. Sacred so God can dwell among us. A week ago I was in a different place. My soul was pretty broken. I doubted my ability to continue to give and be myself. I hurt for the world I knew, and I hurt for the world I wanted. I felt I had to conquer my soul, and to do that, I knew I had to sit with the brokenness. To heal, I needed to accept and just be with the hurt. I was feeling shattered and scattered. I actually said, I really can't help. I'm feeling a bit useless. Imagining the Israelites worshiping a golden calf and Moses shattering the 10 Commandments, I could actually feel Moses' brokenness as he reached out to God to ask to see God's presence even closer. God only allowed Moses to see God's back. What is God's back? What is it that God leaves behind as God passes by? What could Moses see? What can we see? After the second set of tablets are carved and Adonai returns and renews the covenant, it is then that God reveals God's self as compassionate and gracious, as slow to anger and abounding in kindness and faithfulness. Adonai, Adonai, el rachum v'chanu, erech hapayim v'rav chesed. Perhaps God's back are the qualities God allows us to see through the capacity. Perhaps God's qualities are God allows us to see through what happens in the world. Perhaps it's only in brokenness that Moses had the capacity to truly see and understand what compassion and kindness are all about. If one does not know hurt and hard, can one understand compassion and kindness? Can one truly give care and graciousness? Perhaps from Moses' vantage point of brokenness, he could better understand. Perhaps from our vantage point today, we can better understand compassion. Perhaps we can find in others and in ourselves the kindness that we want for the world. Perhaps it is with connection to others that we can truly see the compassion and the understanding. We are being called upon to connect in new ways, different ways that are not easy for me. This all reminds me that there's a traditional understanding that when those tablets of the 10 Commandments are put into the sacred ark in the wilderness, both the broken tablets and the new second set of whole tablets were put together in that ark. Allow me to take us back to the word vayakel. Moses brought all the people together into a kahal, a gathering, for the holy purpose of telling them what God commanded about Shabbat and the building of the tabernacle. This word was also used earlier in the Torah, in Ki Tisah, when the golden calf was built. There, the people came together, vayikahel, for the purpose of standing against Aaron and demanding an idol. We can come together to create sacredness or not. And here we are, Kahal, a sacred virtual Shabbat community today. It is always a choice, a nikudah b'chira, a choice point. The choices we make as individuals and as a larger community, our choices impact how and why we come together and assemble. Vayakel. Can we continue to build structures out of generosity and to create sacred community in time and space? Perhaps in the current shattered situation, we have an opportunity to both notice compassion and kindness and to create holiness in the world in order that God might continue to dwell among us. Shabbat Shalom.